Welcome back to the Building Thinkers podcast. My name is Tracy Clark, and I am really excited about this episode. We're going to talk about 3 things that I've learned about goals. And so if you've been listening with us along the podcast, you might have previously heard our episodes about our goal guide. And so that's what we'll be spending some time digging into in this episode. But I wanted to just pause and take a moment to think about what I've learned over the years around goals and synthesize this into 3 tips that you can take away and think about whether you're reflecting on the end of year and listening to this episode, or if you're kicking off the new year and considering what are the goals you want to set, what's the direction you want to consider for the upcoming year. Whenever this episode finds you, it can be the right time to reflect and think about what you want next. I want to start with, I am unabashedly obsessed with goals. And I know that over time for me, it's looked so many different ways. The way I set goals, the way I consider them, the process that I use. And I decided about 3 years ago to pull that into a goal guide and share it with others, because there were different pieces of the process for me that I found, again, helpful in different seasons. Some years it looks like this. There is mud on this 2020 brainstorm. It is a hot mess. It looks like I folded it. You all know what was also going on in 2020 was lots of survival that year. The point is, some years it looks like that. And other years, you'll see some other examples as we go. But just getting started with it, no matter if it is on a crumpled up piece of paper that has mud on it, or if it is a long, reflective process at a cabin in the woods for a retreat weekend, wherever you find yourself, I want to talk about 3 things that I have learned about goals. Ready? Okay. Number 1, don't skip reflection. It can be so easy to jump right into the goals themselves. And whether it's 5 minutes or 5 hours, whatever opportunity you have, I think pausing to look back and really think about the year that you've had, the ups and the downs, the lessons learned, is really key to the rest of the process. So I'm going to share a couple pages from the goal guide and some examples, and we will put the link to download your free copy of the goal guide yourself. In step 1, you can walk through these steps to really think about what has happened in the previous year, to celebrate treasured moments and wins and acknowledge dips. And so this is the spot where I like to brain dump, set a timer for a couple minutes and consider that. And then there's a page right after it. This is where I love to sketch note and draw out and visualize the year at a glance. And I usually do this by looking back at my calendar and thinking about what happened each month. A lot of times I am very surprised at this stage. So here's one I did in 2023. And I looked at the beginning of the year and the different things that happened during the year. And every time I am blown away at how much change can happen in a year. And sometimes these years at a glance include a lot of hard things and a lot of challenges, and the reflection that I can do and see around those things. Sometimes it's just, we survived that year, or we got through to the other side, came out, stronger, came out with loss, whatever it was. As we were reflecting, I want to encourage you to give yourself space, whether it's been the best year or a really challenging year, or probably for most of us somewhere in between, because it doesn't fit in this perfect container of exactly what happened. And so, okay, reflection does a couple things. If you're listening in and you resonate with this idea of being a multi-potentialite, so you have a lot of things going, you might really align to the ideas of ambition and doing more. And sometimes that can get into overworking and overcommitting. It might be that pausing to reflect shows you a moment to celebrate those multiple projects when you're always moving on to the next thing. The miss can be not pausing to reflect and celebrate and sit in the lessons learned and the themes that arise. So for me, this is essential to do at the end of the year, because otherwise I'll just go on to the next and keep going and maybe miss the joy and depth of honoring what happened in the year. Again, whether it is good, bad, ugly, in between. But also it starts to give you insights for where you're going to head in the rest of the process. And so the next step that is in my goal guide is to now look across your life categories, different areas, different domains of life, and think about how it's going. And so this is a bit of an analysis looking back on the year, and you've written out all those things. Now you choose your own categories. There's some ideas here, but this helps you to consider these specific areas and rating these. And so this goes into my second thing that I've learned. So number one was don't skip reflection. Number two is using both divergent thinking and convergent thinking to see different angles. Here is some convergent thinking, meaning that we've got these categories, and in convergent thinking, you have some sort of container, you have some sort of constraint that you play within that, you think within that. So here, the categories offer that convergent thinking to consider each of these areas. And so here's one that I did that looks like this. I like to think across these categories and just start to rate, how's it going in these areas. And so you can see my yellow category was play for that year. So there were some adjustments I needed to make in that area of life. There was a lot of work happening in that year, and really pause and reflect. Okay, so in this step, we're really using that convergent thinking, and you can see how we've done the reflection and we're now looking in these different categories, and we start to move towards some changes we want to make. And so in this next step, we zoom in, and as we looked across those different domains, now we think, what do we want less of? What do we want more of? And the page looks like this to start to think, we're moving towards goals. We're moving towards things we want to change. What do we want less of in our lives? What are we turning away from? What are we turning towards? So I have a page there. Here's an example from the same 2023 set of, let's just give one example. Like, I'm turning from stress as fuel to impact as fuel. And so that's just some examples of things that came up for me. And I was able to get to those details because of some of those steps before of reflecting, of using different types of thinking. Okay, so we talked about convergent thinking. This step is really where we get to that divergent thinking. So this is the open, dream big, vision board style. I love hexagonal thinking vision boards. I love to take those life domains. And so I have one for my business, for example. I have one around, I like to have my financial one written as abundance. And so those are different categories from the life domains that you can take. And here's the idea that this is where you dream big. We still have some convergent thinking here because of the categories, but you can use within that, design your life. Think about throwing reason out the door. I shared here on this step, it'll say in the goal guide, as you reflect, what can you envision in each area that would bring joy, fulfillment, and/or impact? Try on different mental lenses, such as if time and money were no object, what would you envision for play and recreation? What would financial health and abundance look like, feel like? You can add sketch notes, images, drawings, cutouts, pictures, anything inspiring to represent the vision of what you want to see come to be. Within this process, what I want to say is built into the goal guide is both convergent thinking and divergent thinking by design. So you don't really have to say, am I doing it this way or am I doing it that way? Just if you want to follow the guide, it will take you into those places. And you can use those same strategies at any point as you're thinking about brainstorming or ideating around your future. For example, if you want to go from divergent thinking to convergent thinking, you could say, if I only had 3 months to live, what would I do in terms of travel? And maybe that sparks something that helps you realize that a women's river cruise to Europe would be on your bucket list and you want to make it happen before you're 39, whatever that is for you. So the third thing that I've learned about setting goals and really helping them come to be, like the vision to reality, is the idea that underneath the goal itself are usually habits. So in this section, I talk about identifying wise action, which is goals plus habits to make the vision a reality. And so goals are specific descriptions of what you want to achieve or become. These are not just tasks to be checked off. You have to-do lists and other things for that. And they're not ends in and of themselves. Beware of thinking, I'll be happy when. Goals are tangible milestones of your unleashed potential as you progress towards your larger vision. So then habits, these are the recurring actions and behaviors that make that vision attainable. So effective habits are cultivated intentionally to align with our goals in this process that we're doing here. So transforming small, consistent acts into profound life changes. These are not to be underestimated. These habits really can change many other connected things. In Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit, he talks about a keystone habit, this one habit that when you change, it's kind of like dominoes that many of them connect, and you start to see other areas of life change. For many people, when they make big changes to diet or exercise, other things follow. They might drink less alcohol or cut it out completely. They might go to sleep earlier because they're getting up to exercise. They might feel better and have more energy from those things. And so they're hanging out with their friends and spending social time with people that they love. You can see how the dominoes start to fall in a positive way. And so what I think is really key here, why I set it up like this may totally overwhelm some people. And for others, this key helps unlock the goals. So use it if it's helpful for you. But on the left-hand side where it says add life category, those are those domains from the beginning. And then you can start to fill these out with some goals. And what I like to do is like put a goal in one of the hexagons in the upper left-hand corner. And then underneath that or to the side is a space where you can write the specific habit that if you make that shift, it will help you work towards your goal. Okay, so let's look at an example from my goal guide in 2023. So I wanted to do 24 podcast episodes that year, so 2 every month. And I could have just said that, but I started thinking, what are the systems? What are the processes that are underneath that will help me to achieve that goal? So I listed that in the hexagon underneath or to the side that are the recurring habits that need to be in place so we can achieve that. I'm recording this at the end of 2025. This was about 2023, but we did record those episodes and then a whole another year of episodes after that. We're now finishing up season 3. And so these systems that we've started to put in place are supporting us to do exactly that. I think this piece is so key. Underneath the goal itself are usually habits. Identifying, taking the time to address those habits makes a huge impact. Okay, so 3 things I've learned about goals. Don't skip reflection. Okay, take the time to sit down, whatever time you have. There isn't a perfect time to set goals. Number 2, using divergent and convergent thinking, different ways of thinking, opening up and then intentionally, creatively constraining yourself. Those different angles can help you. That's baked right into the goal guide. And then finally, thinking about underneath the goal itself are the connected habits, identifying those habits, figuring out, what are the things that tend to drive you towards certain behaviors you want to do or not do. How can you shift those and make adjustments? This is where you can have a posture of experimentation, try out habits in different ways and see what works for you. So if you want to download your own copy of the goal guide, we're going to put the link in the episode description so you can have that. If you download it, it will sign you up for our newsletter. We send out an email about every other week with our most recent podcast and then a blueprint for thought, which is an activity that goes along with the episode to put into practice one of the things that my guests talked about or we talked about specific to the topic at hand. And then one note about 2026, I'm really excited about the episodes to come. If you have any feedback or anything you want to hear on this podcast, we would love to know what it is that you're most interested in. If you want to come on the podcast or you know someone who would be a great fit, please reach out. To our listeners, if you listen to this episode, we would so appreciate if you would subscribe on YouTube if that's where you're listening, or follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. As you know from listening to many podcasts, it really does help if you leave a 5-star rating and review and share any feedback with us. It helps podcasts, like ours grow and reach audiences of people that could benefit from these insights. And so I look forward to hearing from you all. If you download the goal guide and work through that, I'd love to see pictures if you'd be willing to share, and any insights, like what came up for you as you were reflecting, whenever it is that you are reflecting. All right. So thank you so much for listening to this episode, and we look forward to seeing you next time.